President Trump has suggested revoking the press credentials of organizations he considers and has called fake news, sparking outrage from both left and right-leaning news sources. Manila Jan joins us with more on this tonight. Manila, this has a sense of Nixonian to it, does it not?
It's that and ironic, Ed, especially for us here at RT America, which we'll talk about in just a minute. The press now calling the Trump administration, or Trump himself, authoritarian and unconscionable after he tweeted this. He said, "The fake news is working overtime. Just reported that despite the tremendous success we're having with the economy and all things else, 91% of the network news about me is negative, fake. Why do we work so hard in working with them, with the media, when it is corrupt? Take away the credentials?" Journalists from print, television, radio, and all things in between have clamored to retweet one another in one big echo chamber, calling this an attack on the free press and the death of the First Amendment. But the White House Correspondents Association, who represents the press corps in covering this administration, say that just because Trump doesn't like the coverage he's receiving doesn't make it fake. So I asked our own legal and media analyst, Lionel of Lionel Media, for his take on it.
A lot of people agree with Trump. And let's face it, this whole idea about pulling press credentials, I mean, he says this stuff because he's being Trump. But here's the irony. There's a lot of Americans who say, do it. Because believe it or not, there are folks out there, good-hearted, tax-paying Americans who loathe the fake news media and who agree with them 100% and couldn't care less whether press credentials are pulled. There's a lot of people who actually agree with him.
And the White House fired back with this response from the press secretary. Sarah Huckabee Sanders said, "The fact that I'm standing here taking questions, the fact that the president took questions from your colleagues just 2 hours ago demonstrates this White House's commitment to accessibility and to providing information to the American public. At the same time, the press has a responsibility to put out accurate information." And the press here in Washington was more than happy to feed one of its own, the reporters here at RT America, to the wolves when the DOJ forced us to register under FARA. And Ed, as you and I know very well firsthand, when this happened to this very network just a few months ago, there was hardly a peep from the media defending our First Amendment rights as well.
Or the Senate, for that matter.
That's right. So the sad irony here is just because they don't like what we have to say doesn't make us fake news or propaganda. The media is just as guilty of the very thing that they're accusing Trump of being.
So President Trump really wants managed news. Is that what the American people want?
Honest news.
Yeah. Thank you, Manila. For more on this tonight, we turn to Robin Anderson, professor of communication and media studies at Fordham University. Professor, thank you for your time tonight. Give us your analysis of what you're hearing about press credentials being revoked. And I've always thought that fake news, the term the president uses, really is code for silence. Your thoughts on this?
Right, Ed. I think he's definitely intimidating the Washington press corps with this. He's berated the press. He's told the American public that the press is, disseminating fake news. But what he's really trying to do with the Washington press corps is intimidate them with a carrot and a stick. You better watch out, or I'm going to pull your credentials if you don't stop being negative.
What does it say about America's democracy when they were afraid to go on certain networks and pull credentials, and even this now being suggested by the president?
Well, it's very authoritarian tendencies that this president have. In many ways, he doesn't. He treats the American public as if they were denizens of empire rather than citizens in a democracy. He treats the press in the same way. He was raised on a reality show, and he's truly a media product. But I think he likes fan media rather than a functioning press corps. And he's really trying to dismantle any criticism that he might get.
Yeah. You know, President Obama didn't like Fox News, but he did do sit-down interviews with him. The president only sits down with people that he knows is going to blow his own horn. But this is also somewhat, if you see the movie The Post with Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks, there's Richard Nixon saying, "I don't want those bastards in the White House anymore." He's talking about the Washington Post. Are we reliving this?
Well, I think so. It's become really extreme when you've got the White House Correspondents' Dinner, the comedy roast of Michelle Wolf, when she's telling the press, look, you're not being critical enough. You accept the lies from Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Kellyanne Conway, and if you didn't put them on your network, they wouldn't have a platform for lying. So, you know, they're getting it from both sides, but clearly they define their ability to do journalism in the White House with these credentials and their access to the administration and the president. I think it would actually be a good thing if they didn't, you know, if they pulled away from the White House for a little while and actually reported on what was going on in the country and the world.
Professor, what reverses this mindset that's now being planted in the minds of the American people?
Well, gosh, Ed, that's a great question, but I think if the press started calling Trump out a little bit more, you know, I think they maybe should call his bluff. What would he do if he really only had the platform of Fox News and nobody was talking about him and they weren't saying things like, gosh, he's reversed his narrative and his surrogates on television are having a tough time? You know, that's not that bad. Those kinds of things are not really calling him out. So maybe they should call his bluff.
Robin Anderson, professor of Fordham University, great to have you with us tonight. Thank you so much.